Hello, I'm Tony Goldstone, and in this video I'm going to take you through one of the intermediate tabs, which is the Step 2A or Pre-Retirement Tax Review. So I'm going to click on that from the table of contents, and that's going to take us through to this Step 2A Pre-Retirement Tax Review. So the idea of this tab is to essentially show you your pension and your taxation in the years before the first age at which you can retire. And if you're in the 1995 and 2015 sections, you can't retire until the earliest age of 55. So in this example, we can see from age 38 through to age 54, and then it's telling us to go to another sheet to have a look at the data following that period. So I'm just going to take through each of the rows. So we can see here in row 3 and 4 we've got the tax year starting and our age in whole years. We've got our estimated pensionable salary, and if we were in the 2008 section rather than 1995 section, we would also show the estimated reckonable salary. And then you can see we've got values for the two individual sections of the pension. So for example here, in the tax year starting 17, so this would be on a 17/18 TRS, you can see that we've accrued pension rights worth £18,000 and £5,000, making a total of £23,000. But it's extremely important to appreciate that these are equivalent to the TRS values, but these don't equate to the pension that you'll actually be getting, because these are unreduced values before any actuarial reduction, for example, or reduction for lifetime allowance or scheme pays. And we also show the lump sum if you're eligible for a lump sum in the 1995 or 2008 choice sections of the scheme. And then we get a theoretical value for the lifetime allowance. And again, with lifetime allowance, it's really important to realise that lifetime allowance has to be looked at in the context of when you expect to retire. So for example here, if we just scroll along, and we can see here that our predicted lifetime allowance first exceeds the predicted value of lifetime allowance here in 2029 when this consultant is 51. But that does not mean that this consultant will be getting a lifetime allowance charge. So if we look down here, we can see that there's no reduction whether the consultant is paying for annual allowance via scheme pays or self. And that's because these are again based on unreduced pensions before there's been any actual reduction or reduction for scheme pays. So there's a really important point that it's not as simple as it used to be, just to say you've reached lifetime allowance and therefore you need to be cutting back on your pension. So essentially there's two ways of dealing with annual allowance taxation. You can pay it yourself, and that's this model here, which is self-pay and remain in the pension full-time. Or from 2017/18 tax year, you can now pay all of your annual allowance charge using the scheme pays method. And in the scheme pays method, you basically get the scheme to pay it. It's essentially a loan, and that loan is subject to interest at above inflation, CPI, plus what's called the SCAPE discount rate, which was 2.8% and has fallen to 2.4% from April 19. So you're talking about a loan at about 4.5% to 5.5% typically. And that comes from the net value of the gross value of your pension. So you can see here that, for example, if we're looking at the current tax year that's just gone, which is 2017/18, we can see what the self-pay methodology would come out at. So we can see that there would be a tax charge from annual allowance of 10,657, and then the line below it shows the cumulative tax, and because that's the same, that's obviously the first year that this consultant has been eligible for tax. Or alternatively, rather than paying it yourself, you can use scheme pays. And with scheme pays, you can see here that we've got that same initial tax charge and that doesn't go onto your loan account essentially until almost a year later, or about 11 months later. But we can see that using the SchemePays methodology, all of these SchemePays loans here are accumulating to become a sizable loan. And we'll talk about the size of the loan in other videos. But even by age 54, we've got a loan here of £250,000. And then in the third option, we've got the what we call advanced and hokey option. And in the advanced and hokey tab, which I'll discuss in another video, you can either use a mix and match of SchemePays or self-pay in some years, or part in or part out, and or you can look at the option of coming out of the scheme or in and out of the scheme using what's called hokey. So we can see that currently this is obviously being set to pay it all by SchemePays, because these values are the same as the SchemePays all, and therefore the values are exactly the same. But that can be set to, as I said, to be a mix and match between self-pay and SchemePay, so I'll discuss that in a subsequent video. So that's step 2A, or the pre-retirement tab. Thank you.